Hey guys, welcome to The Inner Gaze. If you're new, thank you so much for joining. My name is Allie, and if you like what you hear today, please hit subscribe or like and or the bell. I don't know what the bell does, but The Inner Gaze is a channel that I started because I wanted to share my journey and my healing journey and give you guys tips and tricks to how to use certain aspects of yourself that you already have access to, like your imagination, to start healing within. If you have any questions or would like to inquire about some of my services, I do QHHT, which is quantum healing hypnotherapy. I'm a shamanic Reiki master healer, and I guess I do like sort of audible healing sessions, light language, and coaching as well. So if you have any questions, my email is theinnergaze144@gmail.com. So thank you again for joining if it's your first time. And I just want to give a shout out to Alexis at the Ascension Diaries. She just posted a video, and we got to talk about some really neat stuff together. She's a good friend. So today, this is actually a request from one of my subscribers, and I felt that I needed to honor that. And then also, it's been on my mind a ton lately, is synchronicities and what I think they are and what they're for and what does it mean when you're seeing them all the time. So if you are on this healing path and you've tuned in and you're feeling kind of inspired by all this, you might be observing synchronicities in your life as well and wondering what the hell do they mean? Because it is a little freaky at some point, you know, when you are, and what do I mean by synchronicity? They are magical coincidences. I don't like to use the word coincidence. They are an interesting occurrence that seems to be unlikely, and in some way it feels like the universe is speaking with you. Yeah, that's generally the feeling that you get from synchronicities. It's like, is God talking to me? It's kind of freaky. But, you know, synchronicity can come in the form of, you know, repeating digits that you're seeing all the time, repeating letters. They can get really specific. But, you know, 1111 is a very common one that people see on the clock, and they're like, what? Why do I always see 1111? I know that my dad wakes up in the middle of the night and sees 3:33 a.m. almost every day, which is, I didn't realize that until like a month ago, and I was like, whoa, that's kind of cool. Yesterday I saw 222 on the clock when I had 22% battery. I saw 3:33, and then I also saw 4:44. And, you know, going down the street, I'm looking at license plates all the time, and the license plates are always like 666, 999, 555, 111, 1111, 2222. You know what I mean. So those are repeating numbers. They're really interesting. But then there's sometimes these synchronicities that seem almost like uncannily for you. For instance, trying to think of one that won't give anyone or anything away. Like, for instance, if it's your birthday and you're walking down the street and all of a sudden a happy birthday balloon is like entangled in the wires as you're walking. You're like, oh, okay, well, yeah, I guess I was supposed to see that. Thank you. Thank you so much, universe, for gifting me that birthday balloon. But then there's also like synchronicities where you share with other people certain synchronicities that start to help you identify like there's a connection beyond the physical with this person, sort of almost telepathically in a way. There's a lot of synchronicity. So when I break this down, I think I want to break it down from the highest level. A synchronicity is a sign from the universe that you are connecting with the universe, okay? When we are in our regular world, our 3D matrix, this, you know, go to work, so you can consume and buy and die mentality, right? You're not really paying attention to the things around you, and therefore you're not really seeing these numbers, and they're not really coming to you. They're not making you feel very connected to the universe. In fact, you just feel very connected to whatever it is that's happening to you at any given moment. When you start seeing synchronicities and you start observing that maybe there's a layer sort of outside of the matrix, that there's another reality that's communicating with you, that's really when your spiritual journey has begun, because you're starting to make connections almost like outside of the matrix. Like there's something organizing this. There's something orchestrating this. I'm connected to something that's getting my attention, in a way, if that makes any sense at all. And I like to think of it as sort of like, in simple terms, Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now. We exist in a matrix which relies on time, order, frequency to keep all of humanity sort of trapped in this place where we think our time is limited. Time really doesn't exist. In fact, I don't know what to say. In fact, I don't really know the history of it, but I think time like started maybe in the 1300s. Like, I don't really know when time itself started measuring on like a 60-minute clock, 24-hour day. Imagine it has something to do with the cycles of the earth and when that started to be measured, which seems like a very Galileo thing, but the idea of time has not always existed in humanity. And it's kind of, it's all, it's important and stuff when it comes to meetings and being there for people, but is it? I don't know. I don't know what time, the purpose of time just seems to be kind of just this very codependent thing where there's a lot of fear around it. Like, our time is limited. We don't have enough time to do all the things we have to do. People are depending on us to show up at certain times. Like, time itself is just, it's an illusion, and it kind of keeps us trapped in these cycles where we really are. We're at this higher density, this fourth density where there is no time, where everything is now. And when you're in flow, you're tapping into this higher density. You're kind of exiting the matrix of time, and therefore you're able to connect with messages from the universe, because outside of this density, at higher rungs, we are unity consciousness. This is like, we are all one, and we are all communicating through the same source energy that connects everything together. So if we are all one at some level of consciousness, at this level of consciousness, we're very separate. We think we're separate. We have our ego mind driving the car. We think that we have our own individual thoughts that no one else can feel or hear, and that we are essentially separate from each other, and also separate from what connects us, separate from God, separate from source, separate from the interconnectedness, the oneness, whatever you want to call it. That's the illusion. The illusion is that we're separate and that we have our own like individual minds, that there's nothing beyond that. We do have ego, and ego is, it's problematic. It's mostly just fear. It's mostly defense. There's a lot of lower vibrations that go along with it. So anyway, once you start to begin your healing process and your journey, you'll start to notice things are connected on a higher level. And that's when your consciousness really begins to expand beyond the consciousness of just having your one mind and your thoughts and it being a very like solo thing. These are signs and synchronicities from the universe. And they're telling you, at the very minimum, you are in flow and your consciousness is beginning to expand beyond that of what you think is a separate individual life. Okay, so what does that mean exactly? What is the universe trying to tell us? What is the universe trying to convey? And that is where things get tricky. So I don't know if you have been seeing these synchronicities and signs, you might have found yourself on Joanna Scribe's website for angel numbers. And I'm really into numerology. That just sort of started once I started seeing these numbers and wondering what they meant. You know, there's life path numbers, which are really interesting. Some are dates that are significant to you, that you see those all the time. So when it comes to angel numbers, if that's something that's resonating with you, if you are seeing ones, like 111, ones are like new beginnings. Zeros mean, you know, the void, which is kind of like where creation starts. It's nothing. It means you're in the now point. It's in the 0 point field. Twos are like unity. Threes are like the Trinity, so it's like you and the divine, basically. Well, I don't know. The ones I think are like most easy to understand are 1s, 5s, and 9s, and 8s. 8s are easy too. 1s are new beginnings. 5s are change. 8 is abundance, and 9s are endings. And that's the angel number thing. But the more you see these numbers over and over again, like you start just seeing so many, like, that it's hard to really get the messages like in an angel number way. So I don't know how much I believe in the angel numbers. I do believe that the angels are sort of sending us messages and stuff, but I'm not really too sure it necessarily means that the angels are sending you messages that something is happening on an energetic level. It could. Another explanation is that they are activation codes, light codes, which are impacting you, your energetic body in your path to ascension. So if you are seeing certain codes or frequencies, every number has a frequency, light has frequency. They're sort of like the Da Vinci Code or something. They're basically unlocking parts of your energetic body, parts that are hidden and unused, awakening parts of your DNA to a higher level of consciousness, which we are evolving to. That's an interesting way of looking at it. Like, for example, I think Aluna Ash or somebody mentioned like 1141 as a code for telepathy, which I've been seeing 1141 constantly. And in fact, my iOS just updated to 11.4.1. And I was like, what? Okay. Because I've been seeing it on the clock a lot. And so that's kind of an interesting one. And then, you know, sometimes you're literally having a conversation about these synchronicities, and then all of a sudden one of those drives by. And they've gotten so specific in my life. They've gotten so crazy specific that they have brought tears to my eyes. Like, literally, thought and so it is. Thought and so it is. Like, you know, as specific as seeing my name on a car license plate, like, as I'm thinking about myself. But that's a bad example because it's not a real example, but that's how specific they've gotten. And or just like you're mid-conversation about something that happened. I was with a friend actually, and this is kind of crazy. So we were talking about just all of the downloads and everything, and she was talking about how she wants to just take everything that she's ever learned and kind of put it in this think tank. And then all of a sudden a license plate that said think tank drove by. And then someone else that we're connected to, this woman who started a Facebook page, she starts having a conversation in her video, which was like right around the time that we saw this license plate, about pooling all of our insights and downloads together and forming a think tank. And I'm like, what? We were just talking about that, and we saw a license plate that said the exact same thing. What is this about a think tank So, you know, it's just kind of like quirky and a little ridiculous that we're all connecting on this dimension. And that's what it is. So I think part of it could be angel messages, sure. Like if you're seeing nines a lot, maybe you are on the verge of a change. Part of it could be light codes and activations that are just sort of under the radar, without ego, just literally activating parts of yourself that are awakening in the process. They could be funky coincidences, like that's kind of cool, so enjoy what it is. It could just be a signal that you're in flow, or it could also be this expanded consciousness field that you're entering, this place outside of time where everyone is connected and you are connected to the universe. Therefore, you can receive messages telepathically from one another. You can be reminded that you're in flow, and you can experience a relationship with the universe and the consciousness that is your own, that is outside of the matrix. So there's a lot of explanations out there. Which one do I buy? I think they're kind of all four of those things. At the very, very least, I like to think of it as you are in flow when you are seeing synchronicities. Despite your mood or where you think you are energetically at whatever point in your ascension path you're on, like, you are carried. Like, don't worry is what I get from that. Like a friend of mine, actually, she was on an airplane and I talked to her about synchronicities and she started seeing them. She started noticing them a little bit more closely. And she was on a plane and there was really bad turbulence and she got really scared, but then she looked up and it was like the distance back home on the airplane was 777 kilometers away. And there's just like an instant sigh of relief, you know? Like, okay, this means that I'm fine. I'm protected. I'm carried. There's nothing to fear. I'm being guided and I'm safe. And there's just a dude running. And he was doing like these little like jumping jacks across the street. It was very distracting. But good exercise. Very good exercise in the morning. So, yeah, that's what synchronicities are. So yeah, they're uncanny, magical coincidences. They come in the form of numbers, letters, messages, signs, symbols, and, if you are seeing them, I mean, chances are you are having a spiritual experience. It could borderline supernatural. If you've had someone that passed recently and you are getting messages from them through various signs, like could be birds, it could be like, you know, I don't want to give this away because this is a friend's personal story, so I'm not going to say the specific thing, but I'm trying to think of something that's like similar. I can't. But there's some magical things that can happen if you are tuning into the consciousness of oneness. Even if they have passed, their energy is still very much alive, in my opinion, and therefore you can receive messages and signals and signs that they are around you. And that's kind of what a synchronicity is. I mean, it is supernatural because it feels supernatural, but it's very natural. It feels like it's something outside of our bodies that is shared and connected and loving and nurturing and protecting. And that can be a really sort of weird thing when the majority of the time you sort of had these blinders on and have just thinking that this is life, like this, you know, marching through life, you know, going to school, if getting a job, and then, you know, buying stuff, and then getting a house, and then buying more stuff and dying and trying to make sure you have enough money so that you can maybe give money to your kids when you die. Like, if that's what you thought this whole life was about, and it's confusing to sort of acknowledge that there's more to what the eye can see, and that there might be something that's connecting all of us on a more profound level, then it can be kind of freaky. But I like to think of it as all good. It's all good, and it just means that you're in flow and that you're being guided, and take it from there. If you have any interesting synchronicity stories that you'd like to share, please comment below. I love to hear these. They're so specific and so wacky. So please share. And thank you so much for joining. Have a great day.